called Trumponomics. Stephen Moore and Art Laffer have collaborated inside America's first plan to revive our economy. There it is. And he's here with us. So good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for that great tribute to President Bush. I really enjoyed that.
Well, you know, our fathers served together in the Senate, and he always remembered that. And we were
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But
what a life, and especially at a time when we need great American heroes, and he was one of them.
Well, he was indeed. Talking about heroes, though, when Trump came on the scene, you were not initially in favor of him because you didn't appreciate the trade. You were for free trade.
Yeah, it's funny, we talk about this in the book that, the first chapter is meeting Trump. And remember, 2.5 years ago, there were, 15 Republicans running for president?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I knew 14 of the 15. The only one I had never met was Donald Trump. And Larry Kudlow, who's now the chief economist for Donald Trump, and I went to see Trump in Trump Tower, and I remember not having a positive opinion of him when we walked into that room. And after spending about an hour with him, I just had stars in my eyes.
Really?
I mean, he's just a very charismatic guy. You remind me of him in that way. You have a winning way, both of you. And so we started working with them. I saw the president just a few weeks ago, and I just said, Mr. President, this is working better than I even thought it would. He smiled and said, you ain't seen nothing yet. So, it's. Can you believe this economy today, Pat?
We were having, it was like under Obama, it was going to be permanent 2% growth. That was the goal we could hope for, maybe. And now he's talking 4%. Are we going to get 3 or 4%? That's attainable. Nobody thought that was possible.
Yeah, for the last 6 months, the U.S. economy has grown just almost exactly 4%. You're right. I used to debate the economists for Obama and for Hillary Clinton during the campaign, and they'd say, "Oh, Donald Trump is lying to the American people. We can't grow at 3 or 4%." Well, we're doing it. Yeah. They also said, remember, Barack Obama a few weeks before the election said, Trump says he's going to bring back all these manufacturing jobs and he's going to get to 3 to 4% growth. How is he going to do that with a magic wand? Well, maybe Patty has a magic wand because those jobs are back.
What are the numbers now, Steve?
Pardon?
What are the numbers of manufacturing jobs?
Oh, so just since the election, we've created just short of 1 million manufacturing construction jobs. 1 million blue-collar, working-class. Those were the good jobs that were leaving the United States. Yeah. And people said, oh, the manufacturing jobs aren't coming back. Now, we saw, unfortunately, last week that the GM announced they're going to close a couple of plants. I hate to see that, and heart goes out to the families that are affected by that. But we're not losing manufacturing jobs in this country. We're gaining them. For every factory that's been closed down, there's probably 10 new ones. In fact, when I talk to employers today, Pat, what they tell me is their biggest problem, you know what it is?
Listen.
Getting workers. Finding workers to fill the jobs.
Well, when I was interviewing him before the election, and I mentioned the fact that tax cuts were important, but that regulations, the regulatory burden was so strong. And he said, that's what everybody tells me, that the regulations are worse than the taxes. The big theme of this book, Trumponomics, people ask, what single thing is it that Trump did that turned around the economy? Yeah. I don't think you can really point to any one thing. I mean, look, I think the tax cut was really important. Yeah, sure. But I think it was really, look what happened. Remember what happened just a couple of days after the election in 2016. All of a sudden, you had a spurt of consumer confidence and business confidence that we were actually putting a man in office who knew something about business and was a successful, what a concept, right? To have a businessman as president. It was almost like Obama hated success and hated free enterprise. Well, and Trump applauds free enterprise and wants people to make money and be successful. Well, that's what America First is really all about. People say, oh, this is a racist concept, or it's putting aside other countries. No, I mean, it's about basically every decision he makes, Pat. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to him a lot about this. People say, oh, he just cares about the rich people. No. Every time we would talk about a policy to him, he would say, how is this going to affect that coal miner in Charleston, West Virginia? Or how is this going to affect that steel worker in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? Or how is this going to affect the auto worker in Michigan? He cares deeply about middle class, where he used to say, look, the rich can take care of themselves, right? He said it's the middle class that's really not had a pay raise in 20 years. And it's great to see, isn't it, that wages are starting to rise. It was those people who put him in office. Exactly. They really What's the old saying? You dance with the one who brung you. And he knows it was the Reagan Democrats who put Donald Trump into office. When they were talking about there was no path to victory, and we began to add up the states. But when you start talking about Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin and Michigan, that's blue-collar workers who are coming up.
It's really interesting how the Republican Party has actually changed under Donald Trump. If you look at the districts that the Democrats won in these midterms, they tend to be the very wealthy districts or the inner cities. The counties that were won by Republicans tended to be working class, towns, and it's just interesting to me that Democrats always accuse the Republicans of being the party of the rich. Yeah. Now they're the party of the super rich. But look, I think he's in great shape for 2020. If this economy continues anywhere near as strong as it is 2 years from now as it is today, he's going to win a 40-state re-election.
We talked about Bush. You remember that? That's what you remember the mantra for Clinton is the economist. Do you remember? And they beat him up. Of course, they mousetrapped him. Peggy Noonan wrote that speech, read my lips. I was in the convention. Everybody cheered. It was a wonderful line. No new taxes. And then they trapped him and forced him. Do you think the thought is Pelosi will force Trump to play the same game?
I don't think Donald Trump is going to make that mistake. He knows that the key to economic success: keeping taxes low, getting government off the back of our businesses, reducing the regulatory burden. So he understands that. And by the way, what happened, I'm really pretty excited about, and we're just learning about what happened this weekend in Buenos Aires, Argentina. But it looks, Pat, to me like it was a pretty big victory for Donald Trump in terms of getting some real concessions from China.
Well, what is the deal now? Have you got the insight on?
Well, I'm still figuring it out, and my buddy Larry Kudlow was over there advising the president on this. But the preliminary prognosis is that China has agreed to reduce some of its tariffs on America. By the way, I'm a free trade guy. I always told Donald Trump, that I disagreed with him on some of his trade policies, but I think he's right on China. We cannot move forward with these abusive trade practices that China's engaged in.
It's not just the trade, though. It's the theft of our intellectual property. If you're going to do a deal in China, you've got to turn over all of your intellectual property. That's where the theft is.
Yeah, and that's why I thought we estimate, by the way, that's $300 billion, not 300 million, $300 billion a year is basically stolen. It's thievery by the Chinese.
Is Xi going to go along with that? I mean,
well, see, this is the thing, and I think Donald Trump knows this. Remember the old Reagan doctrine when he used to negotiate with the Soviets? Trust but verify. That's what you have to do with the Chinese, because they will say one thing, Pat, and they will do another thing. We know that from the last 25 years. So he's got a great agreement right now. I think, by the way, the financial markets are going to love this. I think you're going to see a nice opening in the stock market because it looks like the trade war isn't going to happen. But he has to verify and enforce this agreement. And by the way, this is just the first step, because you mentioned the intellectual property. That was not covered in this agreement.
I didn't think so. But what he's done with tariffs, though, I mean, the Chinese say, well, we won't put a tariff on American automobiles, for example. That's a pretty good deal.
That's a good deal. And that's a good start. I said, what I want out of this is a deal to make a deal. And I think that's what we got here. By the way, if you want to understand Donald Trump, you have to read his book, The Art of the Deal. This guy is one of the great negotiators of all time. And he used to say, look, we can do so much better in our negotiations with China or whatever country it is, Mexico, Canada. We got a great new free trade deal with Canada and Mexico.
Well, he's abandoning NAFTA as of today, isn't he? I mean, he said, I'm walking away from NAFTA, and this is a new deal. It's Mexico.
Yes. In a lot of ways, it's a better deal than we had before. Look, if he can get this, if this is real, what happened this weekend, and China is going to actually open up their markets to U.S. products, they should do not just autos, but also, you mentioned our agriculture. We have the most productive farmers in the world. China has high tariffs on those. Think about what this would mean for the American economy and our ability to sell things. There's a billion Chinese.
Soybeans.
Exactly. I'm from Illinois. Corn, soybeans, wheat, all of these things. We have the best farmers in the world. So I'm really optimistic about the future.
I think Obama and others who led this country don't understand that we are the big player in the world. And when we move, they've got to move with us or else. Trump realizes that.
You know what that's called? You're exactly right. And it's called leverage. We have leverage over the rest of the world because every country that we trade with They have to be able to. We have the biggest consumer market in the world. So if they can't trade, and Trump realized that. Look, we have an advantage over these countries. We can get better deals, and that's what he always said to me when we talk about this. I can get a better deal for America, and so far so good.
You've got to believe your company is the strongest, and if you believe that, and he believes it, the others, they didn't trust America.
If you get a level playing field, which is all Trump said, I just want to make sure they're playing by the rules and we have a level. American companies, our manufacturers, our farmers, our workers can outcompete anybody in the world. No question about it.
Well, amen. Well, listen, thanks for your insights and Trumponomics.
Thank you.
Is the book out now?
It is out. And by the way, I got a big lift on Thursday. Donald Trump tweeted it out to his 25 million followers. So, that's one of the great advertisements. But you know, people say, "Oh, I don't want to read that book. I don't like economics." It really isn't an economics book. It's really about understanding Donald Trump and how we rebuilt the American economy.
All right, folks, it's available wherever books